Hi, I'm here. I'm just waiting for a few minutes for other people to join in. We'll just start shortly.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so I think we can start. If people join in later, we can just join in and pick up from where we are. So, do you have any questions?
Um, Questions not for this week actually, but the assignment that we completed for week 5, the
Okay,
quiz.
okay. I may not be able to answer all the questions from week 5 assignment because I've not like spent a lot of time on it. I was more focused on this week's content, but you can just at least tell me if there's something else. I can just go through it and I can answer. Mm.
Okay, most of the answers I got correct, but the second question, it says Kluber Lubricant Service offers the following sustainability aspects, and we had to choose
Mhm.
from system life optimization, improve equity. You have it open
Hmm.
on your, or should
Yeah,
I
I've
read it
opened
out?
it. Yes, no,
Okay,
I've opened it.
yes.
Yeah.
So I chose only waste minimization and toxicity reduction. For
Okay.
resource reduction, how uh, how for system life optimization and resource reduction, how are they
Okay.
also included?
So see, I think if I remember correctly, the Kluber lubricants kind of makes, the usual model for lubricants is just a normal product which you just sell, right?
Correct.
But in Kluber lubricants, I think they change it into um, a PSS, and they offer some services along with the lubricants, and they offer some kind of jobs which they do with the lubricants and stuff. I mean, I don't remember the exact specifics of it, but that is kind of like their model. So I'm not going into the specifics. You can go into that, but the basic philosophy I'll just explain to you. So the idea when you have something like that, where the product ownership is not entirely transferred to the consumer, but the company which is selling the product is also selling a service along with it and is trying to continue support throughout the life cycle of the product, then in almost all of those cases, you will see that there is going to be some system life optimization. Because if you buy, um, sorry, just give me a moment. can you can you hear me? I think my internet disconnected for a minute or so. Am I audible?
Hello.
Hello, hello. Am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Okay,
And
my internet disconnected for a minute or so, so
okay.
I thought I'm not audible. Yeah. So, um, what was I saying? Yeah. So in all of these cases where any company is kind of offering a service which offers maintenance throughout the life cycle of the product, the there is generally going to be system life optimization. Why? Because if you say suppose buy a product and it doesn't work very well, or something is broken or something, I mean, you may not have the patience to get it repaired. You may not want to go through the extra effort and hassle of getting it repaired and things like that. So what you would do is you would just throw it out and buy a new one, right? Or you would try to get it repaired maybe once, but you're not going to get it repaired like you know more than once usually, unless it's like something ultra expensive. But generally people won't, right? So you are going to just throw out the product. But if like a the Kluber lubricant kind of a case, if you're getting like a sort of like a service along with the product, and you're using both the service and the product, and the service is kind of enhancing the value of the product, then it is going to enhance the system life also, because it's extending the life of the product, right? So, and whenever you have system life optimization, you will have reduction in resources, because less of the product needs to be manufactured for the company to make profit, right? The same product is being used for say 10 years instead of 2 years, and throughout those 10 years, the company is making some profit, right? So in that case, instead of like if you would typically say be done with the product in 2 years, you are instead, continuing with that same product for 10 years because the company is enhancing the value of the product over its life cycle. So, like if you say normally, if you would like discard it in 2 years, buy a new one every 2 years or something, say a mobile phone, for example, then but instead, if your company is kind of enhancing the value and you use it for 10 years, then you're actually avoiding manufacturing an extra 4 sets of the product. Are you getting me? So that same one is lasting for 10 years. Otherwise, you would buy 5 in 10 years, right? So those 4 extra are not being manufactured. So there is lesser reliance on resources in general. I'm giving you a general case. So
Correct.
whenever you have like a product service system, the service will carry meaning for the consumer only if it sort of enhances the value of the product itself, and that is why it's going to increase system life and reduce
The
resource consumption.
Got it. So resources means right from the raw materials to the product that we've produced. So reduction in all of that. Use of
So
raw material.
no, resources generally means the raw materials, like
Okay.
the raw inputs basically, because you're not manufacturing lesser. That is why your net inputs will be
Got
lesser
it.
basically. Okay. Any other question?
Arvind and 1 minute. Yeah, for the Varanapura question, the
Hmm.
second answer, improve equity and justice in relation to stakeholders. Doesn't that
Mhm.
also count?
Okay. I have actually forgotten the
So
Varnapura case
Varanapura
specifics.
is
Yeah.
the this person Tatya Sahib, I think he created a whole
Hang on. Which lecture is this? I mean, which
in two
number?
lectures actually.
In the week 5, it is in which?
No, it's in the previous weeks actually.
Okay. Mm.
He had created his village. In his village, he had created a whole uh, cooperative for
Okay.
milk, agriculture, sugarcane. Then slowly.
Okay. I don't remember it very well because I watched it very briefly.
Okay.
So, yeah, I was preparing for week 6 content in this week actually. So, let me go through this and get back to you because I
Okay.
don't
Yeah.
remember the specifics of this particular case. And I don't
Chalega.
want to answer just like that.
Uh,
Okay.
Chalega.
Anything else from this
No.
particular assignment?
No.
Because
I
if
think.
I don't remember something, I can just post the answer or I'll come back to you in the next week class.
Works. Okay. I
Okay.
think on others, I should have read the context properly, but yeah,
Uh,
good
okay.
to
For week 6, is there anything?
No, nothing as such.
Okay, so let me share the sample questions for week 6, which I wanted to discuss. There should have been more people. There were a lot of people in the previous class. I don't know why people have not joined. Anyway. Okay, so I've not made this set of questions into multiple choice answer because these are not really those type of questions actually, which I want to put as MCQ. So you can, I mean, I can give you some answer like options, but it's like more, I put these up more for discussion purposes, just to sort of make sure that you kind of understand what we're talking about here. So, um, yeah. So how do you define the main actors in an SPSS? Because this is something I think It's kind of important, but it's gets a very brief mention in the beginning. So it comes right in the beginning where we have started the product promoter analysis just before that. So we talk about, when you're defining the whole case, we talk about putting all the, different consumers, providers, all of that. So how do you define the main actors in an SPSS?
Ma'am, actually, can I be honest? Because this week 6, I just went through the first lecture. As of
Okay,
now, I thought in the discussion I will go through with everyone and then work on it.
okay.
I won't be able
Mm,
to answer a lot on this actually.
okay, it's okay, no problem. So it's not a very complicated question actually, but yeah, the main actors are ones which are adding some unique value in that whole SPSS. So for example, like, um, you know, there may be some small part suppliers, or there may be some, other say even unskilled laborers actually. For example, like, you can just unfortunately, like, you can replace them with some other supplier or with some other, laborers company or something. Laborers company maybe not, but maybe some small contributors in that whole system. So they will not be considered main actors, because firstly they're not stakeholders. They just provide you something. They just supply you something, not provide. They supply you some part or something, and that's it. They don't really have much to do with, you know the product or the consumer or any of that. They just give you some product or some service, and that's it. They're done. They don't really have much to do with the SPSS as such. They don't play any defining role in an SPSS. And secondly, if, for example, like, uh, that company kind of shuts down today, it's not that difficult for me to find another company which sells the same thing, right? Can you think of what says, like, in that same example of fresh, which she has taken in the lectures? Have you familiar with the example she has taken in the lecture? The drinking water purifier example.
In the previous lecture, not in this.
It is in the second lecture.
No,
Okay, if
ma'am.
you've not watched the second lecture, right?
No.
Okay, okay, it's okay, no problem. So that's, like, the example she's taken is that of hypothetical company called Fresh, in which, a lot of, like, there's a lot of possibilities, but one of the possibilities is that there's a company which is manufacturing, you know water purifiers. So, in that case, like, the main actors are just going to be any small part supplier in a purifier, for example. Right? So actually, all of this is based more on lecture 2 and 3, because I felt like lecture 1 was relatively simpler, so people may have more trouble with lecture 2 and 3. And now I'm thinking that maybe other people have not joined because they've also not gone through the whole week 6 content. So, okay, so then what do we do? Do you have anything else you want to ask from, say, lecture 1 or something? Is there anything you want me to go over with you?
Not really, actually.
Yeah,
Like,
because
I
if you've
haven't
not
sat and
studied at
understood the
all,
whole
then
week 6 as of
okay.
now. So
Yeah,
I
I mean, it
might
will
not.
be good for
Hello.
you to, yeah, it'll be good for you to go over it yourself once before I do the whole discussion about it. Okay, so if you want, we can, like, end the class here. It will be short today, but that's fine. So, and we can, but do you think you can finish week 6 and week 7 content by next week? Hello? Okay, am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah, I was just asking, will you be able to finish week 6 and week 7 content by next week? Because week 6 does require a bit of time, and week 7 also, because it's continuation of that same process,
Week
basically.
6, yeah, we will have to finish it by Wednesday because the last date for the assignment is
Oh,
Wednesday.
okay. Right. Yeah. So I think maybe people are working on the assignment instead. That's why they decided to skip the class. It's okay. So, all right. So what I'll do is I will upload my handout. I've just put up some examples there, but it won't make sense right now because you have to go through the content to know the which part of the lectures it kind of fits in.
Right.
So in the week 6 folder, just check the Google Drive folder. I will upload 2 other presentations, which are not my presentations. They are the base, content by this researcher, the professor Carlo Vasili. He is one of the main pioneers in this whole field itself, the system design for sustainability. He is one of the main people who have created lot of the methods, tools, literature on system design, all of which we are discussing and using right now. Most of this has been created by him and his team. I mean, he's not alone. So, like I think Professor Banerjee has kind of condensed it in her lecture classes, and she's explained it in the 3 lectures. But it might be helpful for you to also look at the lecture PPTs by Carlo Vasili, Professor Carlo Vasili. Vasoli, sorry, I don't know how to pronounce his name. It's Italian, I think. So, you can just refer to that. They are open source, like it's Creative Common license. So you may find trouble like looking for it on the internet. So that's why I thought I will just share it in the Google folder itself because it's shareable anyway. So you can refer to that if you have trouble sort of understanding some of the tools which we discuss in classes.
Is
Okay,
it in the week 6 folder?
it's not there yet because I was
Okay.
going to discuss it in the class and then upload it. So I upload everything in the end of the class because I write notes in the class also. So I share that also in the end.
Yes.
So I won't have that today, but I mean I'm going to just upload 2 of his PPTs, I think, which I think are very good for just understanding. One is on the system map, and the other is that three actually, general overview of methods and MSDS tools. And the third is that interaction storyboard. Interaction storyboard is actually, it's not much, but I'll share it anyway. So you can just look at those. I think it will not be very difficult to understand it when you look at it in his PPTs. And I'll share another handout of my own where I've tried to pull up some examples of SWOT analysis and Porter's 5 and all that. So that might be like helpful for you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so then it's fine. I mean, I don't want to waste your time also. So we can end the
If
class here because
I
I can discuss something when I know somebody wants to ask me something or I can ask something. But if you've not gone through the content, it's like it won't make sense to you. That's the problem. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. If you don't mind, I just had questions because last week I could not attend the live lecture. I had two,
Right.
three questions for
Okay.
previous week. If you don't mind, can I ask you right now?
Week 5 or week 4?
It's, I think, week 3 and 4.
Yeah,
It
sure, you can ask.
in Cradle to Cradle, like
Mhm.
in those cycles, aren't Cradle to Great subsets of Cradle to Cradle?
Aren't Cradle to what subsets of what?
So, Cradle to Grave and
Yeah.
Cradle to Gate, aren't
Yes.
both of these subsets of Cradle to Cradle?
Yes, they are. But like you can't like subset it just simply like that because the results are like somehow like just very different. But in a sense, yes. So Cradle to Cradle Did you get a chance to go through the handouts I uploaded in the folders?
Yes, in the week 3 one, right? The presentation that you've uploaded.
Yes.
Yes.
So, okay, let me just share this. This is week 4, actually, not week 3. I think it's
Because
week
there was
4.
a question in the quiz, we had to go through a case study and then mark which cycle has it used. So I
Yeah.
thought that in Cradle to Cradle, everything would just come in. But we had to choose both Cradle to Cradle. Maybe because
So
there were
see,
two
cradle to
quizzes.
cradle, yeah, actually I had discussed it in the previous classes. Um, this is what we spent a lot of time on because I think a lot of people were confused about which has to be used where. So can you see my screen?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Okay, so this is a general, very generalized diagram of uh, any product manufacture, usage, end of life process. So it goes from mm, so it goes like this and like this and then like this, just for clarity. Okay, so in this you can see that procurement of raw materials, then you have preparation of raw materials, and you can see manufacture of components. You assemble all the components, and then you have some main parts, and you have final assembly. And then the point here, this black arrow, this is where the product is ready to ship, right? It is the place where the product is ready to ship is called the gate.
Correct.
That is the factory gate generally. I mean, you can call it factory or manufacturing unit or whatever you want to call it. They all have slight differences in meanings, but philosophically they are the same. At the place from where the final product is completely ready and you're ready to ship it, which means the transportation and shipping is not included in cradle to gate. So cradle basically means start of the product, means starts with procurement of raw materials. And then it ends here, cradle to gate ends with the product being ready. So what type of analysis do you think will benefit from a cradle to gate study, LCA? What type of what type of let's say analysis goal will require this? Just
Uh,
take a moment to think.
for Cradle to Gate.
Yeah. Why do you think somebody would want to do cradle to gate? Just think about what I just said, you know, and look at the
Because
diagram.
I
Yeah.
think Cradle to Gate will mostly concern only the company or the one who's manufacturing it. So to make it more efficient in only that part of the whole
Yes,
cycle.
very good. So what happens is that sometimes you have different competing products or similar products, or technology wise they may be very different. For example, like if you just look at a toothbrush example, right?
Right.
A normal toothbrush, electric toothbrush, bamboo toothbrush, technologically, material wise, they're all very different, right? But from a user point of view, there's no difference really. It doesn't really make a huge difference for me whether I use a bamboo toothbrush versus a regular toothbrush versus an electric toothbrush, right? Like minor difference maybe, but it's not like I'm using one more and the other less, or while my usage there's extra, energy consumption happening or something. Like maybe not the best example, but at least bamboo toothbrush and regular toothbrush are more comparable. And you can say in electric toothbrush you have a battery, but at least that kind of a thing. So there's no perfect example for this, but there are products in which the usage part from the user point of view, or even the shipping point of view, is very, very similar, right? The main difference, which contributes to their environmental footprints, is coming from the manufacturing phase. So then instead of wasting, because see, all of these analyses and all of this, it's a lot of data, and you need like granular data. You can't just take approximation for everything, because if you take approximation for everything, in the end your study doesn't really carry a whole lot of meaning. Like, a lot of people do that, but it's not ideal. Like even if you take the standard parameters, even then You can take like, the polluting rate parameters as, given from some other study, but at least how much somebody is polluting, you should be going and measuring, right? If there is an industry, how much effluent, how much pollutant they're emitting should be measured. How much is the, say, the contribution in toxicity, all that of that particular effluent you can take from other statistics, right? But how much they're actually emitting should be measured, which means you need a lot of resources, a lot of funding, a lot of people to do all this analysis. So, and of course, it is a little bit more doable also to do it as long as it's in the manufacturing phase, because it's more or less, in one place. Even transportation you can kind of do, but in this usage part, it's kind of difficult to measure, right?
Right.
Like, how many users should you take, for example? And, if they are all very different profiles, then how do you account for it? Maybe the lifestyles are very different. Maybe, they're all in very, very different settings. So one is sitting in a state where, say, in some village in Punjab, electricity is free for them, right? Um, so their parameters would be very different. They may be using it differently. Whereas if you're going to somebody sitting in a city like Mumbai, it may be very different. So, how do you even decide which users should you take as a representative user? So all the study is very difficult to do sometimes, right? So it saves a lot of money, it saves a lot of resources many times to do a cradle to gate analysis, when all you want to do is compare what is the environmental footprint or contribution of any product only from its production phase. If you know that the usage is more or less similar for those products, so there's not like a whole lot you're going to achieve from, say, doing the usage analysis for a bamboo toothbrush versus a regular toothbrush, something like that, right? Now coming to cradle, now I have not put it in this particular diagram, but you can, I think, understand. Okay, let's go to the next diagram. So here this. Okay, so I had taken the analysis for a simple ceramic mug in the previous class, which was like the normal kind of mug. I have one here. So let's say, suppose you have a mug like this, and you want to do an LCA for it. Okay, so in this, I've just created this diagram for cradle to grave analysis. So this is like, okay, so this is the diagram. Like, it's a very simple product. So just go through the diagram for a minute. Sorry, I need to do something for my course. Just read it. You will get it, I think. Okay, so you can see this is the normal process. First you get the clay, then you prepare the clay, then you mold the clay into a mug, then you finish the mug, say you paint it or you add something else to it, then you fire dry it in the kiln, then you, once it's dry and cool, then you add a glazing on the mug, then you allow that to dry, and then your product is ready. So right about here, your product is ready to ship, right? Now, this is how much you will be doing, or actually not even here, sorry, because you would still package it also. Not here.
After packaging.
Yeah, after packaging. Why is it going to look? Yeah. So here, this is where you cradle to grave, cradle to gate will
Gate.
end. Yeah.
Correct.
So after packaging, the product is ready to ship. Now the last part is the contribution from transportation and the usage. And in the end, last box here is say the mug breaks, it's the end of its life. So once the product is spoiled, it can no longer function like it should, cannot fulfill all its functions. You can't use it like normal. That is what we call as end of life. Right? So if after the mug breaks and I still decide to continue using it, that's my choice. But once the mug, say, suppose chips off its corner or the handle breaks off or something like that, which makes it difficult for the mug to, fulfill its purpose, you could consider this to be end of life once the mug is broken in some way. Right now, if I want to say recycle or upcycle this broken mug, say suppose the mug is broken and I'm an artist, I want to use parts of broken crockery or broken ceramics to make some other art or something like that. Or I want to make some other product, like, I can use parts of, say, broken ceramics and I make a new vase or something like that. It's a product. It's not even art, because art's very difficult to classify art in the framework of a product. So say suppose, I'm sorry. So say suppose I do something like that, then I'm kind of extending
The life.
beyond the grave, right?
Right.
Now you have started the cradle phase of the next product, because the mug ends here once it's broken. Right? Now
Right.
after that, you're continuing to do something with it. And so what you are doing after the mug breaks is the beginning of the life cycle of the next product, right? So if you want to capture what you are doing with the mug after it breaks, then cradle to grave is not going to be sufficient for that, right? Because in cradle to grave, this part kind of ends here. So
Correct.
whatever you do after this is not going to be captured. So then you have to go back to cradle of the next product. Say suppose you have a diagram like this for the next product. Then when you do procurement of raw materials and maybe preparation of raw materials for the next product, in that maybe till here, depends on what your product is, but maybe till here, then you will account for using broken, you know, um, pieces of ceramics in your next product in its cradle phase. So if you do a cradle to cradle analysis, then you're actually being able to capture the the positive environmental effect or whatever of upcycling a product. So as a general thing, you can understand that what happens is that in any kind of an analysis, when your product or products are getting upcycled or recycled or reused. Reuse doesn't mean that the same owner is kind of reusing it or somebody else is using the same product. That's not what reuse means. Like if you're kind of, using its some part as a, like say some screws from this phone or some other, say this cover or some parts of it, this phone, just as it is getting used in the next product, say another new phone, then that is reuse. So if you remember, all this was, I think, there in week 3 content. So those effects, if you want to capture, in general, you will need to use cradle to cradle analysis. If there is a huge difference between how people use a product, then you can do, a cradle to grave analysis. If two products have very similar manufacturing, cycle and very similar kind of raw material inputs, and the main difference is only in how people use it. It's rare, but not so rare. Sometimes there can be such products which have almost the same kind of inputs required in manufacturing processes, but they they tend to, they're designed to kind of alter consumer behavior. So then in that case, the main effect of the product is in sort of altering consumer behavior. It's not in it's not in the manufacturing part of it. So then you can just skip that whole manufacturing cycle. So this whole cycle you can just skip. You can just start from here.
Gate to
Then
grade.
yes, then you
Okay.
can do a gate to grave. It's not very common because there are very few such products and services which have very similar production cycle. But just for comparison purposes, we want to see how different usage of different products affects consumer behavior. In those kind of examples, you would want to do gate to grave. Otherwise, if there are two products which are kind of different in the sourcing of materials, in the sourcing of in their environmental footprints during manufacturing phase and all, and if how much of the product is being used, how it is being used, all of that is also different. Like she was giving the example of a mineral water bottle versus say a water reusable water bottle like this. Like, I mean, they are both serving the same, fulfilling a similar kind of a need for me, but the way they are used is very different, right? I just drink water from a mineral water bottle once and then I just throw out the bottle, leading to so much of plastic waste. Whereas, in this water bottle, this is also like 250 ml or something. I can sort of use it like, say, any number of times, like any number of refills until the bottle is completely broken. And it's a very sturdy bottle, so it doesn't break that easily, right? So you have like saved, if comparison wise, if you want to see, then, its production is also different because it's using very different materials. There's no plastic in this bottle. Like, yeah, I don't think there's any plastic in this bottle. Whereas in the other mineral water bottle, you use plastic in manufacturing. Plus, the usage is also very different because, even to ship that, the packaging is different. To ship this, the packaging is different. And then that is used just once and then you throw it. And in this one, you use it like at least 500,000, whatever number of times. So in those kind of examples where, like the product may be fulfilling the same need for the user, right? They are both fulfilling the same or very similar need for me. But the production, the manufacturing, the packaging, the usage, even end of life is very different for both the products. So in those cases, you will normally want to use cradle to grave because you can't capture all the effects unless you do cradle to grave. And there is not a huge incentive to doing cradle to cradle because, I mean, nothing is getting reused, right? If your design itself involves reusing, like the product design, as in the design, the water bottle itself involves some features such that, every water bottle, plastic water bottle, is reused in some other way, then it's different. But unless it is explicitly stated in the problem that that is happening, you will not assume that that's happening. So this is also something I think which is important to keep in mind, like, pay attention to sort of like the language of the question, because they will often tell you this. Sorry, I need a 5 minute break because I have a very terrible cough. So just give me 5 minutes. I'll be back.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So, have I answered your question, or was there anything else?
No, ma'am, I think I understood that. I had
Okay.
one more question, but it was just, does eco cost per euro that we studied in the EVR mean in terms of money? The euro means in terms of money, right?
Yes. So, eco cost is a cost. It is just that it's sort of like a metric. How do you decide how much uh, economic loss you're having because of some kind of environmental damage, right? It's a way to sort of measure the the amount of economic damage also, because you remember economic profit loss is one of the pillars of sustainability. So,
Yes.
if you want to kind of understand that there is an environmental damage, but what is the financial component of it, then you need to measure the eco cost basically. So I think I had explained it in the class. I don't remember if you were
No,
there in that
eco
class.
cost. No, I only had asked the question for the eco cost. I remember.
Okay.
I understood eco cost, but my question was the per euro that is being used. So euro is the uh,
Hmm.
in terms
Okay,
of
but
money,
which
like we have
lecture
the
is it?
I,
This is week 3, I think, right?
yes, it's
I
I
don't
think the
remember.
EVR module, the
Okay.
ratio that we calculate after functional unit, defined unit, and then the euro.
Um. Okay.
Week 4, ma'am.
It's in week 4. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Let me just look at that slide because I don't remember exactly what here. This is not in week 4. It was. I remember it was at the end, like right at the end of that particular week's discussion. Siddhi, can you find exactly where in which slide it is?
Yes, just a minute. I'll just find it.
This week 3 we started life cycle assessment.
Where we had studied functional unit and defined unit. After that, we had this EVR
Okay. Yeah, so that must be
before life cycle, right? Before LCA.
that is a part of LC, right? Functional unit and declared unit. This is using so. Can't find where it is because I need to see the expression you're referring to before I can answer.
I think I found it. It's in the fourth week.
Mm-hmm.
The eco cost per value ratio EVR.
No, but which lecture? Like there are 3
So
lectures for week 4. So
part B, one product life cycle assessment, part B,
okay.
week 4.
Okay, close group.
So it's on slide 26.
Ah, okay. Eco cost and value ratio is an indicator. All right, this is what we're asking. So, okay, I'll have to think of how to. So, Okay. So I'm not entirely sure because I think I kind of missed this somehow. I mean, I did go through it, but I've kind of forgotten entirely what this was. So, okay. Um, let me see. So, have you gone through this link? This is the original place where she's taken it from. So, what they're talking about is that, for whatever value you're adding through the product, what is the economic cost of the damage being done by the product? So I'll come to the actual mathematical aspect of it, but just for understanding purposes, what they're trying to say is, say suppose I buy an iPhone, okay, it's like maybe 50 to 80K or something like that, right? Now, for that iPhone, you do say an LCA, right? You do an LCA and you find out what is the damage done uh, in the manufacturing and usage and everything, whichever framework you want to use. You do an LCA and you calculate the environmental footprint. So, for example, like, I think this is the second time she has mentioned. She has mentioned eco cost once before also, which is what I was trying to find actually. I can't find it right now because she's explained eco cost once earlier also, right? So, in that, like, say suppose we only take emissions, because in that example she's, I think, only taken emissions, she's not taken the footprints. So say suppose you take only the carbon footprint, right? So for an iPhone, say suppose the carbon footprint is something X, and we know by using the eco cost calculation and everything, we know what is the cost of the cost, as in the economic cost of that much carbon footprint X, right? So suppose the cost, it's like a more or less like a fixed thing, as in somebody's already calculated it. You don't have to calculate it from scratch. Again, somebody in your country or somebody in your um, scope of work has kind of already calculated what is the cost of the damage caused by, say, 1 kg of carbon dioxide equivalent in the air. So now you have X equivalents of carbon dioxide. So say suppose that cost comes to C, right? Per kg of carbon dioxide equivalent. So now your cost is X into C. So far it's clear,
Yes.
right? So that is your total, environmental cost, or whatever eco cost, not environmental cost. That is a total eco cost which you get for an iPhone, X into C. You know these two numbers. X also is known and C is also known. I'm just doing this to generalize it, right? Now there is a certain value you're adding. Now that value can have its own way of being measured, right? And I think on this page they have kind of explained that a little bit more as to how they're measuring the value. So you're adding, because value is added in all different ways. So there is a certain amount of, say, suppose value you're adding to your consumer, and that value also you are expressing in say in dollar terms or in euro terms, whatever. So then EVR, eco cost value ratio, is basically a measure of, comparing how much financial, what is the financial damage due to that product versus what is the financial value added through that product. So when you take a comparison of the two, like, I mean, typically the lower it is, the better it is, right? Because we want less environmental damage and you want more value add. So value is in the denominator. So if value add is more, then the number is going to be small, right? So exact specifics of how they calculate each item, we can go through this page. If you want, I can also like go back and explain it a little bit better in the next class, because I've not spent too much time on this. But I can go through it and I can explain it further in the next class. But broadly speaking, that is kind of what they're talking about in the EVR. Does that make sense?
Yes, ma'am.
So at least I just wanted you to understand what it is. How it is calculated is a different question, because there's also not like, see, the thing is, a lot of these things are still very much like a subject of research, right? So what you're seeing here is just one of the methods of doing it. Actually, that's even what we are studying in MSDS and all that. That is just one of the methods. It's not like it's industry standard or it is the only way of doing it. It is just one person's suggested way or suggested approach to how you can go about, because it's very rigorous and it is kind of very flexible. It's a good tool which you can use, and a lot of people use it, but it is not like the only way of doing it, right? So similarly in this EVR, it is a metric which has been created by this particular research agency, and it's sort of like I mean, it's not that stylized, but a slightly stylized metric, in which they're basically trying to create some sort of a comparison between how much you are damaging the environment with your product versus how much is the value add you are doing, and trying to see which is more, because if eventually if some product, like even if something of daily use like an air conditioner, right, or a refrigerator, which people use a lot, and we know it does environmental damage. We can even do the LCA and find out what is the environmental damage, but it's also adding some value to us, right? I mean, life is not so easy without ACs and refrigerators. So there should be a way to sort of compare the damage versus the value, because if you only look at the damage, that is also somehow not a complete analysis, because at the end of the day we use it for a reason, because it's also doing something for us. It's not like it's just there as a showpiece or something, right? So what is the value added versus what is the damage done, and then we try to see how damaging it is, and then you can of course find ways to mitigate that damage. But that is the broad idea here. Okay, if this page should ideally explain whatever I've just said. If it does not explain, you can we can discuss it again next week.
Yes, ma'am.
And also, like I had asked all of you to tell me which questions you want me to discuss, because there's like limited time, and a lot of times I don't know what you guys like. I came prepared for week 6, but wanted to ask assignment 5. So I don't mind it, but if you tell me a little bit ahead of time, I will just prepare that ahead of time instead of something else. So there's like a lot to discuss in the TA class, and I may come thinking I'm going to discuss something, but if you've not studied it, then I can't really discuss it. So if you have, if you know what you're struggling with, or if you have some specific problem which needs to be solved, because see, in all of these assignments, there are several questions to solve. Now, I don't know which one you need help with. So if you tell me which one you need help with, I will solve it and I will bring it to the class and explain it. Because there's not enough time for me to discuss all of them, right? Because sometimes you ask me conceptual things, sometimes you ask me problems. So, I don't have like slides, or I don't have content prepared for all of it. Basically, it's very, very difficult to anticipate that. So if you have like specific questions from a previous assignment which you want me to discuss in the class, it's just going to be better if you email me so I can directly address you. My email is on the chat. Please save it. Otherwise, if you forget my email, you can also just go to this Google discussion thing. This tab, right? Ask a question, and it takes you to the Google forum. So over there, like a lot of people have not asked very relevant questions many times. The TA has been answering there, but if there is something very specific you want me to discuss in the live discussions, you can just post that and I will discuss it in the live session.
Yes, ma'am.
Most of the questions here are actually just where is this link and where marking scheme and can you accept my assignment, which is not something I can do something about. But if you have a specific technical question about an assignment or something, if you ask it, I will just discuss it in the class basically. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Anything else anyone wants to ask?
Assignment 2 from week 6 and assignment 3. Can we discuss? Is it too
Assignment
early?
2 or assignment? Okay, you mean like the second question. There's a quiz and then there is an assignment. That's what you mean?
Yes, ma'am. Second assignment and third assignment.
For
Apart from the
week
quiz.
6. Yeah,
Yes,
not
ma'am.
the quiz. Yeah. Okay. Okay. This is a basically they want you to do an interaction storyboard. There's not like a whole lot explained here. You can take any PSS you want. That is your choice. And for that, you need to do that. What is the assignment 3? Yeah, so they've given in assignment 3, they've given an all existing PSS. You have to like discuss this is optional, right? The assignment 3. So I don't know how optional assignments work. Like, do you get marks for it or what?
And so far, we are not even marked for any of the assignment 2s, but we are submitting it on time.
Okay. So they, yeah, because I think physical human needs to evaluate it as opposed to MCQ thing in the machine, right? Okay, I'll talk to the TA. I'll find out what is the thing here. So what is your specific question? First, let's talk about assignment 3 in week 6. You have any specific question for this or some, like, I didn't understand what your question is.
I didn't understand how I am supposed to answer this. That's my doubt.
Oh, you don't know what you have to do in the question.
Yes.
Okay, well, you can select any kind of Okay, have you finished week 6, all the 3 lectures?
Yes, ma'am.
So, you know how what we did in week 6, right? We went over the different steps. Like let me open that slide. So, so what is the MSDS we have been discussing so far? What we do is we have not covered the whole MSDS actually. We've only gone up till reference, context, and exploring. We've only done strategic analysis, I think, so far. Yeah, we've only done step 1. So, do you have the lecture slides with you?
Yes, ma'am.
For week 6? Yeah, so
Yes, ma'am.
see lecture slide 6. You have strategic analysis, right?
Yes,
Number
ma'am. I
1.
have opened it.
Yes. So in strategic analysis, we have done all the steps, which is analyze project proposals, analyze reference context, carrying structure is not a whole lot. Then cases of sustainable practice, and then estimate, suggest how we can make it more sustainable, basically. So this is what they want you to do for this particular, PSS, SPSS design. And in that, they want you to use some of the tools. For example, like you have tools like system map, interaction, storyboard, Porter's 5 forces, or SWOT analysis. All of these are tools which we have discussed during the during the course of the lecture, right? You remember any of it? Does it ring a bell?
Yes, ma'am.
So they want you to draw, like a basic, like you've seen this table she is put in the, let me close this. Too many things are open here.
About fresh water.
Yeah, so she's taken the freshwater example and she has, made a whole lot of diagrams and a whole lot of, let me just share the screen. Right, so say suppose I'm just taking this one screen as example, but this is the kind of table she has used everywhere. So you take this table as say the framework. Okay, in this table, this is the first step, project promoter analysis. And in the project promoter analysis, you have all these tools, SWOT matrix, system map, preparatory company questionnaire. These are the tools in the first stage. This explains system maps and all that. Right? This ends your this thing. Then you come to reference context analysis, which is step 2. So in this, again, you have different sub parts, and each sub part has some tools which you can use with it. Like system map again. Then you have Porter's 5 courses for competitor analysis, and then you have exploring customer needs. So all of these she has discussed in a whole lot of details, right? So you can do reference context analysis. And in this, like the last part is that market definition is just a diagram. Then in that, last part, understanding consumer need, you can use means and chain analysis, or the other one, needs and function analysis. So this is like, I think she's not put those here. They come here, right? Exploring consumer needs. So those are the two frameworks we can use. And then this is step 3. Then this is step 4. And this is the last part is step 5. SDO toolkit is the typical one which you use. For step 4, you can use interaction storyboard, right? So I think the question is asking you to use this entire framework, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, along with the sub steps. Just explain this using some of the tools. So you can create this and you can just create, like, even if you use a system map or even if you use a storyboard, any of these tools are fine. Or you can use an SDO toolkit. Have we discussed SDO toolkit in this lecture? No, right? I think she's going to probably discuss in the next. Yeah. Are you familiar with SDO toolkit?
No, ma'am.
Yeah, I think she's only given the link, right? She's not discussed it. Okay, so if you want, you can just take this. You can just take this case study which she has given, or a sample hypothetical case, and just use this whole framework which she has given, and just map it out using any three tools. Like you can use system design, you can use this market definition, the diagram, or you can use interaction storyboard. These we have discussed in the class, right? SGO, you guys have not discussed that. So does that make it clearer?
Yes, ma'am. The other one?
What is your question in the other one? Assignment 2.
Yes, ma'am. How am I drawing the interaction storyboard? Is it like the same hypothetical, or I should find a real example and then
So
express it?
I think they have left it pretty open-ended. Give an example of product service system. So they've not specified whether it has to be hypothetical or a real one. So I'm guessing, again, I don't know, because this is the content team. They are in charge of this, which I don't have much involvement with as of now. But they have not specified, so I think you can take any PSS. I will I can ask them to just confirm this to you guys. So you can take any. So yeah, I'll ask them. Hopefully they will post it on the discussion board or something. But as of now, let's just go with any PSS. And for that, you create an interaction storyboard. So you understood what is an interaction storyboard?
No.
Okay. It's not very difficult actually. Okay, so let me open that. You know what is a storyboard?
Yes.
What is a storyboard?
A board that maybe with images or some text, you're and starting and ending and putting arrows.
No, just in general, because storyboard is used in many places in design. Like this is a very sort of like a specific use case of a storyboard. But storyboard as a general, like diagramming tool is used everywhere in design, in the world of design. So that's why I was asking if you know what's a storyboard.
Is it like a mood board where you put everything that you want to put towards the design and then make sure you achieve that?
Similar to a
With-
mood board, not
But
exactly a mood board.
with a flow, right?
Yes, so in a
A
storyboard,
sequence.
what you're trying to do is you're trying to, tell the story of how things happen, basically. Just give me a moment. I'll need to set up my board. Sorry, just give me one moment. I'm just trying to open the. Okay. Oh, okay. So storyboard is like, where you sort of, tell stories about your product or about your design or about, how, say, users will interact with your product, or it could be something else. It has a very broad usage. So it's, you can think of it. I'm just telling you what is a general storyboard right now. I'm not talking about interaction storyboard. Okay. Now in this, in these different boxes, many different things can happen. Like this, maybe, your brainstorming stage. In this, you can think about all the different people who you want to design for, perhaps, or how different people will discover your product, perhaps, and what do they do after they discover your product, right? They take some action. For example, they may want to check out your product or something else. And then, what part of your product should be designed to, say, appeal to them, right? So design to, say, appeal to somebody who's browsing your product, right? Then what happens? Then you go to, sort of enhancing some features which are differentiating a product from other products so the user is interested in it. Then you go to, say, suppose something else, price, suppose, which is a good price the user wants to buy. I'm just giving you a very, very general, very hypothetical example of how a storyboard is used. Now, in each of these boxes, you don't have to just write text here. You can put pictures or you can put links, or you can put something else which you think is a good reference material for it. And that is just a broad um, application of a storyboard. So they, even in different things like movies and things like that, they actually use storyboards first. So a lot of times when people are writing movies, scripts for movies or plays or whatever, they generally use something like some diagramming tool like this, which they further develop, they further sketch out, and then they further detail out, and then they kind of revise it or whatever. So even writing a book, you could be using a storyboard. Like you want to write a book, you have a broad plot. So in a plot, a lot of things happen. Who are the players? You define the players, and what do they do? Then what happens to one? Then what happens to the next? You have a broad, say murder mystery, uh, like laid out in front of you in like say 15 boxes. Then you sort of start to write because you know what is the broad framework or the broad story in which things are happening, right? So a storyboard is just a tool in which you tell a story for any purpose, right? It can be used in marketing, it can be used in design, it can be used in n number of creative applications. So it's a very commonly used diagramming tool. Now, in our case, what we are doing is something very specific, which is uh, very important for our purposes. Right? So the broad um, approach is the same, in which you can make different boxes. Okay, and blah 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 blah. So if you see, I think this is kind of what is explained in the lectures also. And so within these boxes, you will be putting those icons. Okay. So what are the icons? Do you remember? Dhanishri?
Clients on one side and customers on the other. Purple
Not
and pink.
clients. Yeah, you've got
Stakeholders.
purple. Providers.
Yes, my providers.
Providers and customers. And others. So there may be some others. May not be, or maybe. There may be some others who are neither providers nor customers. They're just sort of playing a minor role somewhere. So you can put icons of all the relevant ones, and then you can show how the product is moving from say one stage to the next, or what are the interactions happening between them. And then there are flows. So you remember that there were different flows in the system map, right? Information flow, material flow, finance flow, labor flow. All those flows were there. So in this diagram, you can also show something like that if you want. It's up to you how detailed you want it to be. So this is the broad idea of an interaction storyboard. Now, what I'll do is let me stop this and let me share the other PPT. This might be a better. This might be explained better here than in my. So this is the PPT of this lens lab by Professor Carlo Vizzoli, who I was talking about. So all this content, all these PPTs are all created by Professor Carlo Vizzoli. I don't know, maybe I'm pronouncing his name wrong. I don't know about that. But I'll put these in the shared folder, so please do check it out. Okay, because I think very
Yes,
few
ma'am.
people are looking at what I'm loading there. So this is just, he's not put a whole lot of detail in this, but it is mainly what I have just shared, right? So it looks the same, but basically see this is box number 1. Then it comes to box number 2, it goes to box 3, then box 4, like that, right? In this you can place an image that describes the action between the actors involved, and you can use the corresponding colors which you have defined in the legend. So like, for example, we are using pink or red or maroon, whatever this is for customers, and we want to use blue or purple, whatever it is for the providers, and others you can use green or gray or some, I think we're using some other color. So you color code different actors, because in a system you have different actors, right? So you color code, you use those actors, and you describe what is happening in that particular box. So then you describe this, like these are, kind of just representative. You can have any number of boxes, you don't have to have just 4. So for example, like this is, I think he's created this as a sort of like a legend. This is, I think, the legend where he's created all these icons and these are providers and what are the offers of all of these, what is the characteristic of the offers, these are the customers, what is the characteristic of the customers. It's like a very exhaustive thing. You don't have to get confused with all of this. If you're not using you may not be using all of this. You may be, if it's a very simple PSS, you may be using only 2 or 3 of these, right? He's just created a very exhaustive list for you to refer to, so that you don't miss something important, basically, right? So you can just use this legend and you can create, whatever you are doing in the whole process through a storyboard, instead of creating like, a lot of written text and a lot of stuff. So in an interaction storyboard, the main plus is that, it's like a story. It doesn't feel like a huge, irrelevant document which nobody reads. I mean, I'm not saying don't read it. I'm just saying that it's a more visual tool in which you can, communicate and even capture your ideas much better. For example, like, you are selling the water purifier through a wholesaler to the consumers, right? So that can go into one of the boxes where you put the icon for the company which has manufactured the final water purifier. Then there is a wholesaler who's maybe a provider, maybe an other, I don't know, whichever you have assigned, whichever role you have assigned to him or them. And then there are the customers, right? Individual consumers. You can put all these 3. You can put an arrow. With arrows, you are using different types of arrows, right? For different types of flows. So if you want, you can use those arrows, or you can also just describe the action below. Okay. Does that make it simpler?
Yes, ma'am. So can we use this and then fill out the information? Is it like an app only, or is it to help us make it easier?
Yeah, you can use this. I mean, it's just boxes actually. If you want to use the same icons, you can, I'll put this PPT there. I think it should be there in the PPT. Check. So yeah, the PPTs you can't like select it's just a total, it's an image which she has put in this PPT. But you can find all these icons in PowerPoint. So if you want, you can create your interaction storyboard on just PowerPoint, in which you use. See, you don't have to stick with any one particular set of icons. Okay, it's looking a bit overwhelming because there are so many icons and there's so many colors and there are so many arrows and there are so many boxes. But you can define everything in whichever way you like. If you want to use a dotted arrow for something, you use that. If you want to use a solid arrow for something, you are basically just defining what is what in a legend, and then in a visual diagram, you are just using it. So it is much easier to capture a lot of information in just a small diagram. And it's more visual. So you can see what is happening in the whole system. Because you see, all these systems tend to get kind of big and complicated, right? It's not so simple to verbally explain a whole lot of stuff. Okay, this person comes in here, this person is providing finance, this person is providing labor, this person is doing this, and this person is the wholesaler, and this person is the distributor, and the consumers are buying it through this app. right? So there's a lot going on generally in a PSS, and it looks more complicated if you just try to describe it in words everywhere, right? So it's like going to be a 25-page report, which you might be doing anyway, but for you to understand and for you to sort of design it, right? The purpose is eventually design. Your purpose is not just to create documentation. For designing purpose, for your own clarity, all these visual tools will help you understand where the scope for improvement is. It will take a little bit of time to sort of get the hang of it, but once you do get the hang of it, these tools are actually very helpful. Once, see, you just need, it's like a language, right? It's like a visual language. Once you sort of understand what is what, you can just, um, pick the icons and put it here and put it, the right arrows everywhere, and you can just uh, define the whole system in just a few arrows and a few icons, right? That is the idea, that you're capturing a whole lot of stuff in just one diagram, and from there you're able to identify the areas where you have a lot of scope for. The eventual purpose is to um, identify ways in which you can create a PSS, SPSS, right? You may be having a product which is existing or a product service system which is existing. Eventual goal in the end is how do you make it more sustainable, and how do you fulfill the consumers' needs better, right? These are kind of like the end goals of what we're trying to do in an SPSS. So when you do all of these, analyses through all of these tools, it's much easier to identify where you can improve the design of the existing setup or how you can convert a product to a PSS. So if you know the end consumer need, then you can think of 10 ways of fulfilling it, right? You have one product and you have one need, right? Now you combine that product with whatever number of services and you fulfill the need. Now, adding those services means adding more providers or maybe more consumers. So then you just add those extra people who need to be added to it. And then you can finally, explain how money will go. See, the rest of it is just kind of common sense. Who is giving labor to whom, right? You will know that. Who is giving money to whom? The consumer will pay the provider, right? Um, who is giving information to whom? Generally, all the marketing, all advertising is what we call as information. So, or you can say, suppose some company has the patent for it or something like that. So then, that company is giving information in the sense of they're giving knowledge to the manufacturing company, right? So those kind of things will be fairly obvious to you. It's not going to be like very complicated for you to figure it out. So don't get afraid looking at, there's so much to do. It's just a framework created for simplifying a lot of ideas put together. It's whether you use a system map or you use an interaction storyboard or you use something else. The idea is just to capture a lot of ideas and explain those ideas, share those ideas in very limited space and, you know, visually. Does that make sense?
Yes, ma'am. I got it.
Okay. So just go over it once, the whole, the different tools and where it fits. Just, it may take a little bit more time, but once you get it, like once you understand what is the purpose behind it, why we are doing it, how it fits into the whole design approach, I think it will be much clearer to you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So I will share this PPT, although there's not a whole lot there in the interaction storyboard PPT, but I'll still share it so you can just use it for reference purposes. You can just see if
Yes.
any other PPT has. No, I think it's there. So I'll upload whatever I think is helpful for you guys. Just go through that folder maybe by later tonight or early tomorrow, whenever. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Any other question? No other question?
In
Yeah.
last assignment that we
Mhm.
did, I
Week
did
5.
not. Yes, ma'am. Week 5.
Hmm.
In Aravind Eye Hospital and in the Varna case, Varnapura, I did not
Hmm.
tick for empower or enhance local resources.
So yeah, so I think Siddhi was also asking me that. So I've not gone through week 5 assignment. I didn't plan to discuss that today because I thought week 6 content is a lot. So I had planned for that. So I'll post the solutions on the on Google Drive, and we can discuss it in the next class.
Yes, ma'am.
Because I think, I mean, I have a broad, I mean, I remember it broadly, but like the specific questions which you guys are asking, I would just want to go over it once again before I answer you. So I will post the assignment solutions, like not answers, the solutions in the Google Drive folder. And I will, this, if you have doubts, we can just discuss it in the next class.
Ma'am, the solutions are already coming along with the answers.
They've given the solution?
As in which is correct, they have provided it.
No, so that is only the answer. That is not the solution. A solution means explanation of.
Explanation. Yes. Sometimes they
Explanation
send
of
it,
the answer.
sometimes they don't.
So they send it to you separately, or they like,
For other subjects, I do get it.
yeah, I don't think it's there in this subject. I didn't see it at least that this
Yes,
solution posted. Yeah. So I'll create the solution. Or if there is, if somebody already has a solution, I'll just ask them to share it.
yes.
Okay, and we can just discuss it again in the next class. But like I said, like, because there's like so much content from all the different weeks. Sometimes you guys come and ask me something from week 4, sometimes from week 3. So if you just tell me ahead of time, I will come and share exactly that in the class, and then I will go over the question and solve it, or find some example to explain it or something, and then I can answer it better in the class. Just like this, I came prepared for week 6, for example, and uh, like the other girl, she had not studied week 6 at all. So, it's kind of difficult for me to coordinate. So it's just easier for me to know what you want to ask ahead of time, so I can answer it more detailed way, and I can just answer you better, basically.
Yes, ma'am. In week 6 also, when I was studying about system aesthetics, they were talking about how all 5 senses are useful. They took the example of food, they took the example of garment, etc. But isn't aesthetic a lot about seeing?
Aesthetics is more than like just seeing. So, like, it's also like about proportions, or how you perceive something to be pleasant, right? Aesthetics is not just about seeing. Like, is that your whole question? Like, what's your full question?
Before they started the subject, I thought that is how they are going to talk, but they took the example of food. They talked about how the smell and the taste is also very important for the garment. The touch and the look is important. Like, I thought, I mean, in architecture, aesthetic means is how the building looks. So
So see, the
why are they
thing
talking
is,
about all 5?
yeah, so it's like, I mean, actually a lot depends on in interpretation, right? So like, you could think of it as just what you see, if that is what you are kind of focused on, right? But a lot of aesthetics has to do with kind of like building a more empathy in that kind of sense, right? Something, if I say a user or a consumer can sort of identify with something, then that is also sort of like aesthetics, right? Like, for example, like, if you, there's this product which is called boat juices, I think. right? So they try to spin a story around how kind of each particular beverage evokes some memories, childhood memories or something for us, or something like that. And they try to also, like in many of the cosmetic products, they add a lot of fragrances to the cosmetics just for the user to have a more pleasant experience. The fragrance they've added plays no other role. It does not serve any function and does not make the product kind of look better or something, but it plays a role in how it appeals to a user. So aesthetics is sort of like, in the world of design, at least, like, product design, like basically, it is more than just how something looks. It's like appreciation of uh, artistic thing or art or whatever, which does not need to be restricted to just the sense of vision. Does that answer you? Actually, I don't know which slide you're referring to. This is lecture 1 in week 6.
Must be, yes, ma'am, lecture 1. I am referring to my own notes. Must be lecture 1.
Okay. Yeah, I was trying to find it. I could not find the exact place where they have referred to it. It's in this, trying to find in what context it is there on the slide. This one you're referring to, an aesthetic for sustainable interactions and product service systems. This is the one?
It's, I have titled it as system aesthetics. It is about the.
Yes, that is the same, same slide. Yes, so in that sense, let me just open this paper also. I'll just I'll put this paper also in the folder. I don't know if is it linked there? No, I don't think it's linked there. It's just cited there. Yeah, it's just cited there. Let me put it now, otherwise I will forget it. So a lot of things I might forget. Okay, so there's a research paper which she has referred to on that slide. I've just put that in the shared folder. Just read that paper once. Okay, don't get scared that it's a research paper, so
no,
I won't understand. Some research papers are written very nicely, so they actually explain things very well. I'm putting some of the other slides also, which I think are very useful. So I think you were not in the class when I mentioned it. These are basically the lecture notes from Professor Carlo Rizzoli, who has created this entire framework which we are studying. Like him and his team, not him alone. Professor Banerjee might be part of that team. So they have created this whole framework in all these MSDS tools and a lot of literature and research on it. So this is like their lecture notes, and I mean, I think I find it very sort of useful. So like he's explained it slightly differently. He's used a lot more diagrams, so I thought it might be helpful. So you see in this paper, which I have put in that folder, shared folder, he's explained the whole meaning of aesthetics and what they mean and why, what is their interpretation and how, what kind of a role aesthetics can play in PSS, whatnot. So you see, aesthetics, they have explained what they mean when they say an aesthetic for sustainable interaction. So aesthetic is used in a very sort of different context here. basically, beyond what we in everyday language, what we understand as aesthetic. They've kind of given a broader interpretation. They've explained it. So. Okay.
Ma'am, one last question.
Yeah.
Can we discuss about that cycle example? Design of tricycle, it is in lecture note, page number 24, I think. Where
Sorry,
they're talking
wait a
about the
minute.
cycle.
Which week? Which week is this?
6, first lecture.
Okay. Week 6, first lecture. Yeah.
24
Which?
maybe.
24. Okay. Conceptualizing the finance cycle. Design of a
Yes, ma'am.
tricycle rickshaw. This one?
Yes, ma'am. Can we discuss that? Like, I understand that cycle is designed and whoever is riding it is falling in that vicious cycle and he's not earning much. So what is the solution to that? Someone among his should buy the cycle and then he should give it to the drivers.
Okay, I will have to like go through this particular example again in detail. I'm sorry, but I didn't spend that much time on this.
We can discuss this
example.
in next week also. I
Yeah,
just
we
wanted
can
to...
discuss it in next week. Okay, I will go
Yes,
through
ma'am.
it, and because there's not much in the slide and she explains, I think, very little in the lecture
Yes, ma'am.
also.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I will try to pull up the original place where this design is discussed. And
It is by an IIT professor only.
so let me like just pull up that original design because I think that would be the more useful thing to hear.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Deep Bahan, right? This one.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I will go through it and then we can discuss it.
Okay, that's all.
Okay, yeah. So if it is, if there is anything else, just please post it in the Google forum or email me just so I don't kind of forget. Even this,
Yes, ma'am.
it's better if you can just post it also so I don't forget that this is what you had asked.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm teaching 3 courses actually, so it's very possible for me to forget entirely what we discussed in this class. So
Yes.
that's kind of where. Okay. All
Yes, ma'am.
right.
Thank you so much.
Okay, no problem. So can we end the class here? Anything else?
No, ma'am. We can end.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I'll
Thank
end the
you.
class. We'll meet next week.